This is Sky Tour Radio.
The universe is calling you. The universe is calling me. It speaks both day and night. It's full of dark and light.
Hello and welcome to Sky Tour Radio here on KGRAradio.com. I'm your host, Mark D'Antonio, here with my outstanding, effervescent, and amazing co-host, Amanda Curran. Hey, Amanda, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you for being here tonight. I know that you just can't live without Sky Tour Radio. And also with us tonight, with both of us, is Daryl Mason. Hey, Daryl, what's going on?
Hi, Mark. Hi, Amanda. Hi, everybody.
I am so happy you guys are here tonight. We've had some pretty interesting Sky Tour live streams, which if you haven't heard of that, I'm sure many of you have. It's the companion stream to Sky Tour Radio, and it shows you the wonders of the deep night sky on clear nights. We can't look in cloudy nights because there's nothing to see except clouds. And we look at stellar birthplaces. We see dead and dying stars, glittering jewel boxes of rich clusters, and comets. And there's one up now that we've been viewing over the last couple days. And if you look on Sky Tour live stream on Facebook, you'll see a image that shows the progression and motion of the comet. And Daryl, I'm going to send you that image because I just realized you can't see that image. So I will send it to you personally. I forgot to do that. Sorry.
Super. Looking
No
forward to
problem. If I mess something up, I will tell everybody. I don't mind. And the thing about Sky Tour Livestream is that it's an amazing place because we have a lot of people in the chat who join us from all over the world. We have people from Bangkok. We have people from Mexico. We have people from England. We have people from Canada. And, of course, the United States, as well as many other places. We've had listeners and watchers from Japan. And so it's really a fun place to go. And we have myself and Amanda and Daryl. We are Sky Tour Livestream. And we will take you through live views of the night sky through our amazingly capable telescope that we have in our observatory here. We have two observatories. One is in Connecticut here. The second one will be opening soon in Arizona. We are putting together the components and getting everything ready, and we're testing it here on the East Coast Sky Tour Livestream. So it'll be available. So just join Sky Tour Livestream. Of course, it's free, and feel free to enjoy the wonders of the night sky. Participate in the chat. Suggest things you want to see, because we're looking at the chat at all times, and you can have almost a one-on-one conversation with us while the telescope is operational. All right. So it's a sight for the eyes. It's a sight for the mind. Okay. If you can think about that. And it's a wonderful place to go when, especially in this particular time, and Sky Tour Radio now has a call-in line, and we'll bring that up later. It's called, the number is 85 KGRA live. And, that number is 855-472-5483. It is not up yet, and we will possibly make it active in the last half hour of the show. So if you call now, you won't have the call answered. So just wait until we announce it. And if you want to talk to myself, Daryl, or Amanda, you can reach us at the following email: skytourradio@kgraradio.com. Now, tonight on Sky Tour Radio, we're going to do some really fun things. But before we do that, I want to do even more fun things. And that is to bring Daryl up and have Daryl tell us about some things that are coming up in the night sky. Daryl, did you want to do that?
Sure. kind of caught me unawares here.
Oh,
This is just all a semi-regular update on what's happening in the sky. If you can get up before sunrise, go out maybe 5 or 5:30 in the morning and look in the southeast. You have heard me talk about the Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn collection over in eastern Sagittarius before. Mars was closest to Jupiter on March the 20th, if I remember correctly, and they were joined by the moon on March the 18th, and I managed to get a few so-so pictures of it. Mars was in conjunction with Jupiter on the morning of the 20th, and Mars has now passed Jupiter and is getting closer to Saturn than it is to Jupiter now. And I was out looking again this morning. I go out every clear morning when I'm up, and they're still making a very pretty trio in the morning sky. Mars is going to be closest to Saturn in conjunction with Saturn on the morning of the 31st of March. And it's a very pretty thing to look at. Now, in the evening sky, you have doubtless seen Venus up high in the west after sunset. And the moon joined Venus last night. It was pretty too. The other really neat thing to watch for is the Pleiades, the seven sisters, the little star cluster in Taurus. The Pleiades are going to be joining Venus on Friday, April the 3rd after sunset. And it will, Venus is actually going to be inside the Pleiades cluster. I think it's going to be over toward the little handle of the Tiny Dipper part of the cluster. But Venus will actually be within the Pleiades star cluster. Now, Venus is so overwhelmingly bright that looking at it naked eye, you may not see much because Venus is going to wash out the stars in the cluster. If you have binoculars or a really low power telescope, wide field scope, binoculars will just give you an excellent view. Okay. And it's something you will always remember. It'll just be absolutely beautiful in binoculars. And again, that's after sunset, Friday, April the 3rd. Go out and take a look. And that's pretty much it. Stars of winter are going away now. Orion is well in the west after sunset and not far behind is Sirius. And the stars of spring are in the eastern half of the sky. And conversely, in the morning sky, when you go out and look, the stars of springtime are over in the west getting ready to set. And the stars of summer are riding high in the morning sky now in the eastern half of the sky. And that's going to show us now what we'll see 6 months from now in the evening sky.
Wow. As you can see, folks, Daryl is a font of astronomical knowledge. I mean, it's like having your own personal finder scope.
Oh.
It's true, isn't it? It's true.
Stop.
Nah, you really want me to stop?
You can go on a little bit.
See, I knew it. Good.
Don't give me a big head, please.
Oh, nonsense. You know what? You know what the thing is? I wouldn't say these things if I thought it would give you a big head. You know, you're very self-deprecating. You don't have any illusions of any kind. And you know what? We need more people like you around. And I know that our listeners believe that too, because I do. And I try to emulate that type of person anyway. I don't have an attitude about this. Why should you? You know?
I have shared the sky with thousands of people live and now online on the Sky Tour live stream and here on KGRA Radio. I hope to share it with thousands of more. It's the beauty of the sky, and I'd love for everybody to go out and take a look.
Yeah, I think that's
People
a great idea.
don't have an excuse anymore.
No, they don't. And with someone like Daryl telling them where to look, you know, I think this is great, right? I mean, it makes it perfect. It's a perfect combination.
I hope so.
Yeah, it is. You know, speaking of the night sky, because that's what we do here, one of the things I wanted to mention was that the virus, and we're all sick of talking about the virus, and we don't want to get sick from the virus, of course. But there is an interesting theory that was advanced by an Indian astrophysicist, which I'll talk about shortly, And I was on a show earlier tonight when I talked about, well, I was talking about someone who brought it up, talking with someone who brought it up. And once the show was over, I felt it was okay to mention because that was her thing. But it relates to an astrophysicist, Indian guy named Chandra Wickramasinghe. And he's an Indian astrophysicist who worked with Fred Hoyle, who you know, Daryl, I mean, from astronomy, and Amanda now knows. Fred Hoyle was an English astronomer. He died in the early 2000s, I believe. But both of them had these theories that you could get organic compounds in space. And it was sort of monumental at the time when Hoyle was looking at it. Because organic compounds, to define what an organic compound is, it's a compound that has carbon in it. Okay, so CH4. Okay, it's an organic compound. Okay, methane, and CO, carbon monoxide. It's a organic compound. Carbon with a nitrogen atom is cyanogen, and that's CN, and that's also an organic compound, as well as diatomic carbon, C2. And all of those things can be found on comets. And it turns out that with the influence of sunlight, comets in particular will give off a green light. And that's no different from the comet we just looked at the other night, which was Comet Atlas Y4. And Atlas is actually an acronym. It's ATLAS because it was the Atlas system which found it, and that was the Asteroid Terrestrial and Impacts Last Alert System, and that's what Atlas stands for. So Asteroid and Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. And that program run by JPL is the one that found this Comet Atlas Y4 and the other comets. So that's why you're going to see several comets named Atlas. But note they're all in caps, all caps, capital ATLAS, and that's because of the nature of the instrument that found it. So the question was, could the virus that we're suffering from here on Earth have been brought here by something else? And in other words, could it have been extraterrestrial in nature? And on the show we did today, it was a Chant Hanna show. We talked about that. And the organic compounds from space, we know are true, are real. But could pathogens be delivered from space? That's the question. My personal feeling is that I do not subscribe to the fact that there is a panspermic reason for pathogens on the planet. I don't think that pathogens could be delivered here. And Wickramasinghe said that maybe COVID-19 was delivered extraterrestrially, and his thoughts and reason why I don't subscribe to, but I'll tell you why. All right, here's his thoughts. It originated localized in China. That's where it began. And earlier, earlier in the weeks before or months before, there was a bolide, which is a meteor that, as it breaks up, you actually hear a noise in the ground. There was a bolide that went and hit northern China. And then some weeks or months or whatever later, this virus starts. And he was looking at the localization and saying, gee, that's coincidental that this meteor struck at the same point in the same place, not place, but same time, relatively speaking, that the virus would incubate and manifest. And if that was true, then we have another problem, and that is we can get death from above with more than just asteroids and meteors, but even things that don't stand the chance of killing us could also kill us. Well, I think that the localization concept, I get it. It makes sense when you look at the numbers and the locations and the locale. The problem I have is that he was suggesting that this meteor could have had particles that survived the absolute inferno of reentry. And I won't say that's not true, because it can be. We found amino acids in a meteorite that made it all the way through the atmosphere, and that so technically that's been proven to be able to be true. You can get something organic reach the ground from space after a normal reentry. Well, if you look at the way the virus manifested in China, and you look where the meteor struck, you're struck by something else, not a meteor. You're struck by the fact that had this thing come into the atmosphere, it probably would have exploded at a high enough altitude for it to cause these particulates, these viral pathogens to reach the ground. Well, they had to come from some height. They didn't strike the ground and then spread like this. They would have exploded in an airburst. And typically with meteors that are of any size, when they explode, they actually are many miles up into the atmosphere. And in that case, at that altitude, the virus wouldn't have been localized just to China. It would have gone through China, eastern China, all the way to Japan relatively quickly, because it means that the high altitude winds would have carried it before it settled down, if at all. And it would have been all over the world in a very blurry pattern rather than a fairly localized, concentrated pattern. So that's my reason for not believing that. I don't know, Daryl or Amanda, do you have any? Did you want to weigh in on that?
Oh, sure. Meteorites make it to the ground every day.
Well, I said that. We had amino acids in the Murchison meteorite, for instance, and they do. But
yeah, well, if you like talking about carbon and stuff, carbonaceous chondrites, I know often make it to the ground.
Yeah.
Sometimes they find them on the surface of ice on lakes in the wintertime and find them down in Antarctica, stuff like that.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a meteor that reaches the ground that's going to be the source of an infection. I think it's going to be an airburst that's going to spread a pathogen. Mm-hmm. So maybe let's be devil's advocate here. If we had a meteorite entering the Earth's atmosphere and it explodes, several miles up, which is what it would do, and probably it could be 15 miles up, then any surviving pathogen would drift down, but it would also get caught by upper level air currents and be forced to move around. It might not, if it hit over China, technically, it may not even reach China. It might fall to the ground way further east out into the Gulf of Japan or beyond. If we look at it that way, maybe it would have gone south of the Koreas. I don't know.
Maybe one landed in the bat soup. Who knows?
Well, I guess you can always say that.
Has this ever been proven to have happened before, or are there any theories on?
Excellent. That's a very good question. It has been proven that organic compounds can reach the ground from space. The Murchison meteorite is.
No, I mean, have they ever brought disease? Are there any theories that a disease did come this way?
Yeah, there's
proven or not.
Yeah, there's a theory that mad cow came from space too. Believe it or not. I know. I'm not kidding either. And for
golly.
Those of you in the audience, when I say mad cow and then they say Denny Crane, how many of you know what that joke means? Denny Crane. Anyway, moving on. I'll get response.
Well, hey, if you're going to throw a Star Trek reference in there, I assume you're talking about William Shatner at any rate.
Don't save it for the audience. Go right ahead and tell them, Daryl.
Well, I never watched Boston Law, so I know who Denny Crane is. So, but if you got to have your obligatory weekly Star Trek reference,
please do.
David Gerrold, the guy who wrote The Trouble with Tribbles on the original Star Trek, also wrote an interesting sci-fi novel series called The War Against the Kator, which was about an alien ecology invading Earth. And it starts off really small, and then things literally get bigger and bigger until you got things like giant dragon worms all over the surface of the planet. I won't go any farther with that. But also, oh golly, Andromeda Strain comes to mind.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people are actually likening COVID-19 to the Andromeda strain. Obviously, very different the way it affects the human body. And you know what? Guess who produced the first Andromeda strain movie?
Douglas Trumbull.
You got it.
Oh, that was my guess.
Oh, really nice job, Amanda. Because yeah. And we have some questions, by the way, in chat, Amanda. And if you want to throw them, now's a good time because Daryl just finished his segment. We might have a question to Daryl here.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we do. Oh, let me flip over. From Excella. She says, the Mayans have held the Pleiades and the planet Venus to be sacred. Venus is in the Pleiades. Your thoughts? And that's for anybody, not necessarily Daryl, but I'm sure we want to hear Daryl's thoughts.
I'm an astrologer. I'm an astronomer, not an astrologer. That's, it depends on what you believe in, I guess. I mean, stuff goes through the Pleiades all the time. The moon goes through the Pleiades on a fairly regular basis. I really don't know what to make of that. I'm sorry, Excella.
But it's actually not the first time that Venus would be near or in the Pleiades. And so it's possible that ancient peoples might have witnessed this and thought of it as a sacred event. And I would not have any doubts that it probably would spark some type of sacred ritual, hopefully not human sacrifice, because, hey, whenever in doubt, kill somebody, right? I mean, that's
sure. And the Mayans were great observers of the night sky. They watched the sky every night, and I'm sure, people ascribed meaning to the things they saw.
Yeah, that's true.
But if nothing else, it's pretty.
Yeah.
Which is why I look at it.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the Pleiades to take a guess.
Okay. Well, and we have another question from Blue Orb, who's Charles. He asks, has any viable cell been recovered from a meteorite? And the answer to that is not at this time. But there have been some close calls. We thought that we might have had a Martian meteorite that had something microbial in it, but it turns out that was not exactly what it was. It might actually have been some kind of geological type of construct deep in this Martian meteorite. But I think that's the closest we ever came. Daryl, do you know any?
That's the only one I can think of offhand. I was doing a live program down in the San Juan Mountains here in Colorado back in the 90s, whenever the story broke about that. I had been out of touch with the news all week and had not heard about it. I did an astronomy program one night. Somebody in the audience mentioned it. I believe it's called the ALH 840001 or something like that.
Not that we're remembering numbers from so far long ago, but fantastic job. I would probably guess you're right.
It was something like that. ALH 84001, something of the sort. They it caught me by surprise because I hadn't been keeping up with the news, and I didn't know how to answer the question. The story turned out later that they thought they had found fossil bacteria inside this Martian meteorite.
Yeah, and I remember that story very, very well. And I think that my first thought was, I hope they isolate that thing. Because I was, again, like Hoyle and Wickramasinghe, I thought that maybe we could find something dangerous from space that we're not, that it would be toxic to us. I guess in the same way that Camille Flammarion thought that Halley's Comet in 1910, as we talked about before, Daryl, that you actually brought the story to our attention, because of the cyanogen, the green color of the comet, as we pass through Halley's tail, instead of a beautiful meteor shower, we might be met with toxic death. And he never really lived that down, now did he? So we're very hesitant to say such things these days.
Yeah. Well, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, I mentioned the other night, he made hay off of that story, and he actually wrote a story about it.
Oh, do you remember the story?
I'm sorry.
Do you remember the story?
I've read it. I don't remember the title. It's in a collection of his short stories I have.
Okay. Well, so as far as the virus being from a panspermia origin, I don't think it could have been or would have been. I do think that it's a remote possibility, and even Chandra doesn't believe that that's likely what it is. He just offers it up as a possibility to be thorough, and that's the right thing to do. So I think that knowing we can get organic compounds from space, we have to consider whether it came from space. But that said, I think that it's a pretty cool story on no matter what, because it kind of points out that we can't just say, well, because this wasn't, because of panspermia, doesn't mean that we won't get one. That could be a very dangerous one for us. Who knows? We might also have a pathogen that comes down here that improves our DNA, for all we know, causes mutations that work for us and not against us. I mean, that is also a possibility. Do you ever think about that? We could actually get a mutagen that actually makes us better human beings. Wow, we don't get cancer anymore. Or wow, look at this. We can point our fingers at no, I don't know about that, but not superpowers. It's not the, this isn't the
X-Men.
Thank you. I was trying to remember what it was, for crying out loud. Well, look, I'm going to go to break now just to get my mind back in shape here. And when we come back, we got more to talk about here on Sky Tour Radio. And I'm Mark D'Antonio here with Daryl Mason and Amanda Curran. We'll be right back.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
Every 2 seconds, someone needs blood. Whether it's a natural disaster or one single child suffering from illness, the American Red Cross stands ready to supply blood when it's most needed. But blood is a perishable product. Therefore, it must continuously be replenished. You can safely donate blood every 56 days. The need is constant and patients are waiting. Call your American Red Cross at 1-800-GIVE-LIFE to schedule your life-saving appointment. Please give blood today. Patients are depending on you.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
More ways for you to make contact. Live Discord chat rooms, live talk radio, live video cast, toll-free HD phones, and coming this year, live streaming TV, giving you more ways to make contact. Your KGRAradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Sky Tour Radio. This is Mark D'Antonio. At least I think I'm Mark. Let me look. Yep, I'm me. And I'm here with Daryl. And I have Amanda here as well. Amanda, you're still hiding in the back, aren't you?
I'm here.
All right, come out in the front now and say hello to everybody, will you?
Hello, everybody.
Hey, before we go any further, Amanda, tell me if we have any more questions in the chat to look at.
Yeah, one actually came in just as we were heading to break from Charles. It says, as active and adaptable as our ecology is, do you really think... Oh, something just popped up, sorry. Do you really think any external living bit would be anything but lunch? Sorry, I have things popping up from Discord.
No, you're not the one that's confusing me. The way it was written is confusing. External living bit would be anything but lunch. To whom? I don't get that question. Daryl, maybe I'm striking me wrong. Daryl, do you know what he's saying? Do you have any idea?
I think if something from elsewhere came here, would it just get eaten? I guess is how to interpret that. I would say with the history of invasive species from continent to continent, say, or country to country here on Earth. Well, if we had a alien, invasive species come, it could wreak havoc on us. Possibly.
Yeah, that's true.
That's science fiction as much as anything, but hey, that's what makes you think.
If you look at our history of evolution on the Earth, which, by the way, is sort of a little segue into what we're going to do tonight. Amanda always loved the history of everything, and boy, we're going to do everything tonight. So she better be paying attention, right, folks? Because she has to give a class on this in just another week.
You're funny.
Oh, listen to you. You know what? In this uncertain time, I kind of wanted to give you something to think about that's pertinent. All right, and I want to talk about how things happened on the Earth. And anyone that knows me knows that I do a particular talk when I do talks around the world and around the country, where I will actually have a very pertinent item for now, and I use that to show the history of the Earth. So here tonight, adapted for radio, is the toilet paper history of the Earth.
Oh God, not the toilet paper again.
Oh, yeah, I have several rolls of toilet paper, and I've written the history of the Earth out on them. And I have one that I take with me that's a little more robust than the others. And I'm going to talk about this because I think it's really interesting. Again, it's pertinent, but it gives you an idea about how the Earth evolved. And you can see the sheer amount of time that passes before another event occurs of any nature. We see, we hear in school, okay, here's the Cambrian period. A lot of little animals in the oceans. Yay, okay. And then we have the Ordovician period. Oh, okay. You totally skipping the tens of millions of years the Cambrian period existed. So there's so many things and so many animals that were alive and died. It's amazing what this Earth has generated. So in our virtual toilet paper here, we have 298 sheets. Okay. In real life, I have 298 sheets, and each sheet corresponds to just over 15 million years. All right. And it's about 100 feet long, or for those of you counting inches, 1,192 inches or 3,027 centimeters. Pick your favorite number. Figure 100 feet. All right. And at this era where the world begins, all right, the origin of the Earth is 4.6 billion years ago. That's sheet 298. All right. Now, at that point, the Earth was a congealing mass Usually, a protoplanet doesn't have a surface defined. It's more of a ball of hot gases that have actually condensed and combined, and they form a liquid. The liquid forms from the molecules that form under these pressures and temperatures. The center becomes very warm and hot, but nowhere near the heat to become, say, a star. I mean, you could never get to many millions and tens of, 13 million degrees Kelvin or 13 million Kelvin in order to start like fusion or anything like that. So we just have this planet congealing from dust and debris in the early solar system, what we call the solar nebula. And that happened at sheet 298. Okay, that's the origin of the Earth. Now, at sheet 291, right, just a few inches later, the moon formed there. And that's the formation of the moon. Now, the moon was formed from similar materials, but how did they get there? Well, there is a theory for how the moon formed. Daryl, you know the theory, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Why don't you tell people?
Well, I think the commonly held idea right now is that an object roughly the size of Mars impacted the Earth. And it knocked chunks off all over the place, and some of those chunks coalesced to form the moon. And I guess the Earth absorbed the rest of it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's problems with that theory. I mean, when we look at the moon and we look at its composition, we expect the moon's composition to be both the impactor that struck the Earth and the Earth. But we notice that the moon's composition seems very similar to our own. So either the thing that impacted it was very similar to the Earth, or we have the wrong theory. So there is a possibility there that we're wrong, right? But in the end, we will certainly be able to figure this out someday. Because right now we don't have access to some of the technologies we would require to do that, namely the ability to drill into the moon and take a deep core sample. That would help us. We might find the composition that is very different. Now, when craters are created on the moon, that's because of a deep excavation created by an impactor. And one of the myths is that they're all the same depth. No, they're not. Okay. One of the myths is that they're all flat bottom. No, they're not. Okay. There's various ways to show that, and I talk about them in SkyTour live stream. I take you on a tour of the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter Quick Map, and you can see how it has a variety of tools that you can use to measure the depths of craters, and you'll see that, no, they're very, very rarely even close to the same depth. So it's, when those are excavated, material from inside gets blown out. And so that's why some of the Apollo landing sites were in the rays of some of these craters, the rays of that ejected material called ejecta. And they landed in the rays to see if they could see what the internal geology of the moon was. And they discovered that all they were seeing was stuff like the Earth. And it's like, that sort of doesn't coalesce with a Mars-sized object made of different materials striking the Earth. So, it is a very interesting theory, and it all happened at sheet 291. Okay, so we still have 290 sheets to go here, and that was the formation of the moon. That was 4.5 billion years ago. Now, right around 4.2 billion years ago, one of the things that happened, and that was 272 sheets away, right? And man, we're now just like 19 sheets inward now. Okay, so you multiply 19 times 15 million, and that's how many years went by for that. At 4.2 billion years ago, that's when the Earth had solidified enough to start having basically a hard surface. And of course, and I hate to say it this way, but like pimples, okay, volcanoes would arise at various spots, and the hot inner material would make its way out, and of course it would outgas. It would spit out lots and lots of gas. Well, this early gas built up an early atmosphere on the planet. No oxygen in this. Okay, we're talking about just the materials from volcanic eruptions. Okay, hydrogen sulfide, methane. Okay, some steam. There's plenty of water. Because water seems to be very prevalent in the universe. So that was really interesting. And and now with the beginning of the Earth's atmosphere, that was for about 200 million years that was building up as an early atmosphere. And that takes us to the beginning of something known as the Archean, the Archeon, the Archean eon. Okay. And that was 4 billion years ago, 259 sheets from today. All right. And it's back then, right around 3.96 billion years ago. That's where we have found some of the oldest known Earth rocks, and there might be some that are a little bit older even that we've just discovered, primarily in the zircons. I think you've heard of that, right, Daryl? The zircons. I think they might be from Africa, perhaps.
Actually, no, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. I've heard just as general things, some of the oldest rocks on Earth are either found up in on the Canadian Shield or down in Australia, perhaps.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, these were zircon crystals. Well, the thing is, this Archean eon led to these oldest known Earth rocks that we could find, and it was right around. I'd say anywhere between 3.4 and 2.7 billion years ago. See, we don't know exact time frames for certain events, but this is a big one. Around 3.4 billion years ago is evidence for the first bacteria and algae that occurred on the Earth. Now, those bacteria were a special type of bacteria that we can talk about. And I think those are kind of cool. These bacteria are called prokaryotes, okay, or prokaryotes. And they're characterized by having a cell wall, like cells, a cell membrane, cytoplasm inside, DNA, but they don't have a nucleus, okay? They're just sort of like primitive cells, okay? And bacteria are prokaryotes, and cyanobacteria, that is photosynthetic bacteria, are prokaryotes. And these are the ones that would suck up carbon dioxide and would spit out oxygen as a waste product. And as I said before, you're breathing bacteria waste. and the fact that they're here means you can live. So as long as they keep emitting what they consider waste, that's to our benefit. So, okay. We deal with it, and the buildup of the oxygen atmosphere occurred, probably in earnest around 2.7 billion years ago. That's 174 sheets ago. Okay, 174 sheets. So we're talking about, still a long way back, and we're still 2.7 billion years in the past. Now there's an argument whether it was 2.4 billion years, 2.7. Hey, who cares? Right? Who cares? All we know is this oxygen buildup was extremely important. All right. And something else happened around 2.7 billion years ago, which was amazing. At this time, when this happened, we had these prokaryotes, these simple little cells. But then we see evidence of eukaryotes. Now, that's Karyotes, eukaryotes. And when they arrived on the planet, they're very different. They have a nucleus, all right? They have DNA, they have cell wall, cell membrane, cytoplasm, all those things that you learn about in biology class 101, okay? But the thing is, these eukaryotes were basically evolved from what we think are prokaryotes. And it was possibly an accidental engulfment of a prokaryote that actually engulfed another prokaryote. And we don't know this for sure, but this is something that it makes logical sense when they work it out. And it shows that maybe the engulfed prokaryote helped the other one that it was inside of, or to actually survive with its functions. And this became potentially a mutation followed by an adaptation that was chosen as a natural winner. And maybe this is how eukaryotes came about. And then more occurred, and more and more and more, and then finally became a regular thing. And that was about 2.7 billion years ago, 174 sheets ago, in sticking with our toilet paper history here. Now, it wasn't long after that we found the beginning of the Proterozoic. That's the earlier life eon, and that's the end of the Archean. We started Archean, and we ended up now with the Proterozoic. This is what starts. And whenever we go to these different time frames, there's usually a divider, something that makes it go from one to another. In other words, something that stands out as a separating point. And in the earlier times here, it's very hard, okay? But it could be that when we get to this Proterozoic, or the earlier life eon after the Archean, it was the arrival of more complex eukaryotes. So in other words, they may have had more cell structures within, or maybe we started to see that there were multiple eukaryotes that were working together, almost like a directed multicellular creature.
They started specializing.
That's right. And that's like the definition of an animal, is specialized organs, and those are specialized cells doing a specialized job, right? And that's exactly right. And I think that's something that's, of course, lost to a lot of people. This early history, the Earth's early history, is something that many people don't get, right? Now, at that point, at the beginning of this Proterozoic, again, that was 2.5 billion years ago. That's 161 sheets ago, okay, out of our 298. Okay, so if you look at that, you notice that we're 100 sheets in, and we're only at relatively simple eukaryotes. Okay, so that's a long time. Multiply 161 times 15 million, and you come up with, and it's 15.5 or something. So it's not exact what I'm telling you, and you end up coming to 2.5 billion years ago. All right. And when these complex eukaryotes appeared was around 1.8 billion years ago, and that's 119 sheets. Look at the difference here. I mean, we between 1.8 billion and 2.5 billion, we're approaching a billion years here. It took for earlier Proterozoic life to reach the eukaryote stage, where the cells actually had this nucleus. I think that's pretty interesting. Well, complex eukaryotes. So I think that's a pretty interesting development. Okay. Now, around that time, let's not forget the Earth. Meanwhile, the Earth is cooling and erupting, and we have occasional magma oceans at one location or another. There's bombardments that are going on the Earth at this point. So whatever life is existent somewhere might be wiped out another time by bombardment. And right around at 90 sheets, we find that Rodinia, a supercontinent, the early supercontinent, showed up. And this was Rodinia. It's not Pangaea. Pangaea is later. And the early supercontinent was around 1.4 billion years ago. And what's neat about this supercontinent is that the first known animals showed up on this supercontinent. All right. And that was 1.2 billion years ago. Once Rodinia came into existence 90 sheets ago, it basically took 200 million years, from 1.4 billion to 1.2 billion. It took 200 million years for the first known animals to arise. So you see, evolution and the development of species and biodiversity is not a speedy process, right? Now, keep in mind, the first oxygen signals that we were a living planet left the planet and headed out into space around 2.7 billion years ago. That's when our oxygen built up. If anyone was looking at our planet, much like we look at planets out in space around other stars, we're looking for oxygen. Why? because if there's an abundance of oxygen in the atmosphere, it shows that it's possible and very likely that something is replenishing it, because oxygen loves to bond with other elements in the ground. So you take oxygen and put it near iron, and it becomes Fe2O3, rust, right? Mars lost its oxygen when the water in the atmosphere was disassociated and split apart by the ultraviolet radiation from the sun. And the hydrogen escaped to space, and the oxygen went down on the ground, bonded with the iron, and rusted Mars, and that's why it's orange today. And I know some of you out there going, really? Because you haven't heard that before, but it's true. I have said it quite a bit, so maybe you're all saying, yeah, get on with it. I don't know. But when we look at this when we see these first known animals 77 sheets ago, or 1.2 billion years ago, we have to think about what is an animal. Okay, and the definition of an animal is it's a multicellular thing. It has a multicellular body, and as Daryl said earlier, it has specialized organs made of very specialized cells to handle certain things like senses. Okay, and another thing that's very important is it has self-directed movement. I want to go there. No, wait, I want to go over there. No, wait, I want to go there. That's self-directed movement. It decides where it's going to go. It's not at the whims of wind or whatever. And finally, it has the ability to acquire and digest food and reproduce. So this is the definition of an animal at its most base terms. And this can be a multicellular creature too, a small multicellular creature as well. So this is something that's, I think, like when we say the first known animals, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about multicellular creatures where all the cells are combined into an organism which does those things. It's specialized senses and so forth. Now, if we look at these first known animals and we move on a bit now, we go from 77 sheets ago, which is 1.2 billion years ago, to 800 million years ago. We're now broken the 1 billion year barrier. Now we're under a billion years ago. Around 800 million years ago, 51 sheets ago, we had the breakup of Rodinia. It broke up. And what caused it to break up? Well, it's something in geology that we call plate tectonics. Because once the Earth cooled, there's a lot of currents under the surface of this cooled rock. And these currents drive giant plates around on the Earth's surface. And these plates were all cohesive at one point, and then they began to break apart. I mean, the number of earthquakes must have been just staggering, and nothing could have withstood some of these earthquakes back then, because I'm sure that some of them were extremely violent. However, once the plates were established, then the Earth had basically a bunch of cracked plates that are all interconnected at its surface. And if you think about it, here's one for you. And this, don't get too worried now, but we are only basically maybe between 30 and 50 miles above magma that goes all the way to the core of the Earth. Wherever we are on the Earth, in some places it's thinner, like Yellowstone, where it's only 2 miles beneath your feet, because that's a hot spot, or Hawaii, where it's at the surface almost, depending where you are. So, I mean, the Earth was born in fire. It was born of fire and will end in fire when the sun dies. But if you think about it, this plate tectonic activity is in part of the reason why things went bad here as well, as we'll see. And it's the reason why the Earth evolved as it has. Now, if we go from 800 million years ago to 700 million years ago, 100 million years later, that's only 45 sheets from today. That's when we actually had early multicellular organisms of any note. All right. Now, again, this is before the Cambrian that we all hear about. It's well before the Cambrian. All right. However, starting around 544 million years ago, which is 35 sheets ago, this was the beginning of the Cambrian period. Now, the Cambrian period was characterized by something called the Cambrian explosion. And it wasn't an explosion as in boom. It was an explosion of life. Many new species arose, and animals with shells developed at this point. This was a very important development. Now, you got to wonder, how do shells happen in a creature? Why would a creature develop a shell? You know, what's with this calcium carbonate, man? Why is it doing that? You know, and animals with shells were fully developed and complex by the Cambrian era. I mean, what kind of animals did we have in the Cambrian? Well, we had trilobites, which were arthropods. Okay, and what's an arthropod? It's a creature with an exoskeleton as opposed to an internal skeleton. Modern day insects are arthropods. Myriapods, including centipedes and millipedes. Arachnids, which includes spiders, mites, and scorpions. Did you know a scorpion is an arachnid? It is. And crustaceans, like lobsters and crabs. And trilobites were this type of creature. And they're the great granddaddies of all of these arthropods. When we get back, we'll talk about more creatures from the Cambrian and talk about the killer at the top of the food chain in the Cambrian, which is actually quite an astonishing little creature. But I'll be back with Daryl and Amanda right after these words here on Sky Tour Radio. Stick with us.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store. So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey everyone, this is Nick Redfern and you're listening to Sky Tour Radio with Mark D'Antonio on the KGRA network, and so are the Men in Black.
Now you have the inside contact for alternative talk radio. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to the Cambrian period. No, just kidding. This is Mark D'Antonio at Sky Tour Radio with Daryl and Amanda. Later on, we're going to hear again from Daryl. He's got a great story to talk about, to tell you about regarding some of the fascinating fossil finds in Colorado where he lives.
Yeah, well, this will relate to your toilet paper analogy.
Yeah, no, it does.
Whenever we hit whatever they call the KT boundary now.
Yeah.
Used to be the Cretaceous Tertiary. Yeah. And I forget what the modern terminology is.
Cretaceous Paleogene, but don't worry about it.
There you go.
Don't worry about it. We'll get to it.
Back.
Okay.
Right.
Amanda, you didn't squeeze the Charmin, did you?
I did not.
Oh, good. That's okay. Because you'll find plenty of Charmin. You just won't find toilet paper. Oh, no, wait. Charmin is toilet paper, not paper towels, right?
You got to be pretty old to remember those commercials.
Yes,
I think there was Mr. Whipple. Please don't squeeze a Charmin.
Yeah. And I think going to those commercials for a second, it's kind of ridiculous. You see women, because of course it was always women you see that went to the supermarket and bought these things, never men for some reason. And they're sitting there squeezing with this look on their face like they're like having such a good time. And it's like, gads. Even as a kid, I thought they were just very bad commercials. How would you like to be that? You're the guy. Hey, you're Whipple from the Charmin commercials. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'll never live that down, and he'll never get out of it, right?
I'm sure Mr. Whipple laughed all the way to the bank.
Well, let's hope he did.
He's making a comeback as a meme.
Oh,
is he?
Mm-hmm.
Is he even alive?
I don't know about that.
Mr. Whipple will never die.
Well, he's alive in everybody's minds.
Where's Bill?
He's here. We're live, We're back in the show.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So Bill's he's here, but he'll be back. So we were talking about the Cambrian period before, and we talked about how trilobites were arthropods, which again are the same creatures as scorpions, lobsters, crabs, and spiders, which I think is kind of cool. So trilobites, like we said, are the granddaddies of all these arthropods. Now, way at the top of the food chain was this creature called the Anomalocaris. And he had it's Anomalocaris, and it had an exoskeleton as well. But its diet was trilobites and other invertebrates. So it was really the top of the food chain. But if you saw it, you could kick it and, it'd be done. It'd run away. Okay? So it's a relative thing, isn't it? Okay? It would eat worms and mollusks as well. And these were all prevalent and very common in the Cambrian. And during the Cambrian explosion, there was a lot of additional biodiversity that developed throughout this time. So many kinds of worms, many kinds of mollusks. There were more than 100 types of trilobites. And I have a bunch of those here. I've got fossils, I got a really nice fossil collection that I've amassed over the years of trilobites that look like malevolent science fiction alien creatures. I mean, they are amazing creatures. I would not want to encounter one when it was alive, because they just look scary as anything, So, and so, yeah, and it turns out that because of trilobites, we have, in a sense, lobsters, And of course, the horseshoe crab is also very old as well. And I think that when we talk about the variety of life in the Cambrian, we can't let sponges go unmentioned, because sponges were, of course, very diverse back then. They started having a tremendous explosion of biodiversity there with the sponges. And then some other things happened, and this is, again, evolution. Some creatures developed hard spines for defense. Now, this was a mutation, but then the adaptation worked, and it helped continue the life of the mutated organism. And so more mutated organisms occurred. And thus nature selected for success this mutation to have spines. So we have things like the spiny lobster and sea urchins and things like this, all, again, developed as a mutation that served to help the animal succeed. Now, the Cambrian period, this lasted 34 million years. Now, just think about that for a minute. 34 million years. And so we had these things. We had the Anomalocaris, we had trilobites, we had other forms of crustacean-like creatures, and we had worms and mollusks and sponges and all these developments. 34 million years worth, and that's the Cambrian. Now, don't forget that at the time the oxygen was built up in our atmosphere, that was 2.7 or so billion years ago. Here at the Cambrian, we're talking about 544 million years ago, maybe, 544 to 510 million years ago. So for 34 million years, it lasted. So anywhere in that time frame, had there been an alien species in the universe that could detect oxygen in an atmosphere, they would have seen an abundance of oxygen in our atmosphere, enough to say, hey, we're carbon-based. We need oxygen to create energy for life, to sustain life. And we're explorers. Let's go see this planet. And who knows? They could have come here and seen oceans and some land masses. Most of the life was in the oceans at that time. And maybe they came here and cataloged some sea life. They could have been here. Because if you look at it, again, 500 million years ago, the signal from oxygen in our atmosphere left the planet 2.7 billion years ago. And 1 billion years ago, another billion years later, okay, literally 1.7 billion years ago, a billion years later, that signal had gone 1 billion light years into space. Okay. And then almost another billion years later, we find that a little more than a billion years later, we find that a couple billion light years is how far out our signal for oxygen has been going out into the universe. So if there is an advanced species that could see that oxygen in our atmosphere, way back then, they could have found us way back then and started the trip, or come here if they had a faster way of travel, which I do not doubt that they would have. There are possibilities that within string theory that show us ways to travel in ways that can circumvent the speed of light, just like the Alcubierre drive is a warp drive that allows us to compress the fabric of space and stretch the fabric of space. So too would there be other ways to go even faster throughout the universe. And this is something that I think they could have done. So we might have had visitors to this planet, alien visitors, extraterrestrial visitors, as far back as 525 million years ago, because they saw the oxygen signal in our atmosphere from wherever they were. So when people say, we're being visited now by aliens, I always temper that with, well, maybe we have always been visited by aliens. If alien life exists, there's no reason they're most likely going to be carbon-based. I know I'm a carbon bigot. Yes, I'm a carbon chauvinist. But that's because carbon is abundant. It bonds with more elements than any other element in the periodic table. It's the granddaddy of all elements. So life in the universe will more than likely be carbon-based and therefore require oxygen to process and create energy. So if that's the case, oxygen is going to be very important to most other species. Notice I say most. There's a slight, very, very slim chance that my carbon bigotry is unfounded. And there might be some other life forms based on another element. But I think the nearest contender would be silicon, and it doesn't bond with nearly as many things. And it's that variety of bonds and the variety of strengths of these bonds and the variety of configurations that carbon can produce that forms the basis of life here on Earth, including DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Say that 25 times fast. No, wait, don't. So I think that when we talk about this, here we are talking about the end of the Cambrian, okay, which was 510 million years ago. And that's, by the way, sheet 33. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Am I talking about that right? Yes, that's right. There was a sheet 33, 510 million years ago. And this was a point where we had oceans full of life. So why did the Cambrian era end? What happened? What happened? It seems that the Cambrian era ended when glaciers started to advance on the planet. We were going through a cold streak. And they lowered the temperatures of the shallow seas. And then when the temperature was lowered, oxygen was depleted, creatures died, temperatures dropped in the water, and it saw an extinction event. And that's why we define Cambrian to the next era, which is the Ordovician era. That's Ordovician, 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 kind of like a spelling bee. Ordovician, you know. Well, the Ordovician era started 510 million years ago, of course, at the conclusion of the Cambrian. And the Ordovician saw a tremendous jump by more than 4 times in the diversity of animals. And that was kind of interesting because we had just come off an extinction event. But as is in true fashion for this planet, life will find a way. And you should always say that to yourself. Life will find a way. Okay? Just like with COVID-19, life will find a way. Survival will be assured. And when the creatures were killed at the end of the Cambrian and into the Ordovician, the new creatures that were developing mutations to survive, who knows how many iterations of mutations occurred before each species hit upon the naturally selectable trait that would allow it to continue. When this happened, the diversity jumped at least 4-fold. Now, what kind of animals were in the Ordovician? A lot of the same ones as in the Cambrian that didn't pass on. Trilobites continued. Then we saw brachiopods. Now, what are brachiopods? Well, you've seen scallops and shells at the shore. Hey, look at the shell. Okay, the fan-shaped type shell. All right, these are shelled animals known as having what are called hard valves. And what is a valve? A valve is the shell. So what they would do is they would open their whole shell. They were hinged at the back, and they'd open up, and they would filter feed, right, and then close up if there was danger. And so brachiopods were very prevalent back in the Ordovician era. And again, we're talking at a time 510 million years ago. All right. And so another thing that happened back then is that mollusks started to explode in diversity. And then creatures called crinoids. I have a beautiful, it's called the mortality plate. It has dozens of crinoid fossils on it. And these are like creatures that have a stalk, like a flower. Think of water lilies. Okay. And crinoids, actually, believe it or not, they kind of remind you of water lilies, like lily pads, like frogs will sit on, the classic frog pad. But they're in actually the same family, actually the phylum, as modern day starfish. which are echinoderms. Echinodermata. Remember that? Okay. Now here's another one for you, Amanda. This is for you specifically. When you classify the different animals, do you remember? Did you ever do that actually? Because some science programs never talk about how we classify animals.
Do you mean like species, family?
Yes.
I don't. I think there's 7. I don't know them all, and I don't know them in order. But like,
would you like to learn them all in order right away and never forget it?
Yes.
In the same way as
do you have a mnemonic?
I do. As far as "Oh, be a fine girl, kiss me."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, here's one.
Okay.
King Philip came over for good spaghetti.
Wow.
Now take the first letter and
hold on. King Philip
came over
for
good spaghetti. Daryl's probably shaking his head.
Kingdom, phylum, class. Oh, I don't know what the O is. Origin? No, I don't know what the O is.
Daryl?
Order?
Yep.
Family, genus, species?
You got it.
I cannot believe I did that well. I typed it in chat so I could see the letters to see if it came to me. What was O again?
Order.
Okay, yes, that sounds familiar. Wow.
Bro, that's very well
King
done.
Philip came over for good spaghetti. Okay, I'll try.
Now, see, as part of the science background I have in astronomy, I did a lot of Earth science because I had to understand life on Earth to understand how life elsewhere could develop, see? So I classified lots of creatures, and I did go through, we are called keys. We went through these keys, which would help figure out what animals were. If you had no knowledge what this thing was that was in front of you, you could figure it out based on going through these keys. And that I thought was pretty cool. And if you got to the end of the key and it wasn't something that was in there, you found a new species because species is at the end. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I just thought that was kind of neat. I thought I'd throw that at you. I'm glad now you have a new one. So now maybe we'll do some animal stuff and animal classification on future shows, huh? Yeah, I don't think so. But hey, Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Those are the and you were right, it's 7. Those are the 7 classification categories. And when you go back far enough toward kingdom, okay, that's kind of when you're going back in time, okay, in a sense. You wouldn't find, for instance, that a creature like a crinoid was related to a particular species now, all right? Because a species now is something that lives now. Crinoids are no longer living creatures now. They are extinct relatives of the starfish. And that goes to the phylum level. Okay, starfish are echinodermata. So I think that's pretty cool when you think about it that way. So, in the animal kingdom, you can go down to phylum and maybe class and possibly a little more, but not more than that when you're talking about going back in time, especially the farther back you go. Now, and here we were just talking about the animals in the Ordovician era. And again, in the Ordovician era, we also saw a rise in cephalopods. Do you know what cephalopods are, Amanda?
I've heard that word.
Yeah. We had a show about a particular cephalopod. The most intelligent creature, I said. She's thinking. Lives in the ocean. The most intelligent creature in the ocean.
A dolphin?
No, more intelligent than a dolphin. Oh, I hear people in chat screaming it, and I hear people out there listening to us screaming it out. Come on, Amanda.
Octopi.
Yes. Remember the show we did? We talked about the most intelligent creature, I think, that's in the ocean, and that's the octopus. So the relatives of the octopus and squid back then, there was the chambered nautilus, okay, that is still in existence today. Now, they don't have a skeleton, but they have an exoskeleton, right? The shell, calcium carbonate shell, these these mollusks. These cephalopods. I think the chambered nautilus. I'm trying to think of how the chambered nautilus works. Because they steer. I actually had a science fiction show ask me to build ships based on the chambered nautilus. And it was digital, so I was building these 3D images of these really cool chambered nautilus-looking ships. I had put in windows and stuff like that, and it was about going to be a science fiction story about an inner Earth where you go through the North Polar cap, go underneath the North Polar ice, dive down to a certain spot, and you can go inside the Earth. It was sort of a sci-fi show. I really, really wished it had gone, and even if they didn't use me, because that is really kind of a cool concept. I don't believe there could be anything under there, but you know what? I can suspend disbelief for a while. Okay. So, keeping in mind, if you look at some of the most successful creatures and their designs, we find that we actually mimic their designs these days with our craft that we create, submarines in particular. We mimic dolphins with our submarines. We look at how they travel through the water and how effortless they are. I mean, they've evolved the most drag-free methodology for traveling through the water, and it depends on how fast the creature's supposed to go, right? We wouldn't design a ship based on a squid because that's a lot of drag, it's a lot of drag. Hey, so anyway, the Ordovician era had many, many such life forms, and there were many, many more. And this era lasted 70 million years. Can you imagine that? 70 million successful, wonderful years. All the while, oxygen in our atmosphere, was being modulated a little bit, going up and down. But then near the end of that 70 million years, and the reason there is an end to that 70 million years, the Ordovician era came to an end because at that point we were going through another cold snap. And this time, 85% of all the creatures on the planet ended up dying off. All right. And that was due to global cooling and then the reduced sea levels. So obviously some were left high and dry. They would end up in tidal pools, which ended up going away entirely as the ice froze and more water was removed. So this kind of problem is something that was happening sort of rhythmically on the planet. And that was 85% of the population on the planet of creatures died. Now that begins, that takes us to another period. But let's also remember that during the Ordovician era, which was, like I said, it started 510 million years ago. That's 33 sheets ago. During that time, we saw the earliest fish arriving and the earliest land plants. Let's not forget the land. The land was colonized by plants first. And that was 450 million years ago when they showed up. And that was 29 sheets from today. Okay. And our big roll of earthly toilet paper. It's 29 sheets ago that the first plants started to conquer the earth. All right. Now, when the Ordovician era ended in that extinction, thus began another period of time called the Silurian, Silurian, Silurian. And the Silurian period was pretty cool because it's during that time that we actually saw the beginning of insect life showing up here. And the Earth was now stabilizing. We didn't have these cold swings anymore. We didn't have the glaciation right now at that point. The Earth was nice and calm. It actually became more conducive to life. And this is where the first coral reefs began to develop. Okay, this was now, I mean, think about it. This is 440 million years ago. All right, this was 28 sheets from today. Remember, we had 298, and we're only just getting to the conquest of the land by plants. All right, so 28 sheets ago, 440 million years ago, was when all this happened. And the glaciers melted, and that caused sea levels to rise worldwide. And this is where we see at this time, 440 million years ago, this was when we actually see the first evidence that there was large-scale land use by smaller creatures like spiders and centipedes. And we see a tremendous number of plant fossils from this time period. Now, the Silurian period is also, I think that's been called the Age of the Fishes, because this is a time when there was a very high proliferation of many different kinds of species of fish that developed here, with a tremendous increase in biodiversity. And the Silurian period lasted for 32 million years. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? That's an amazing amount of time that passes. So it gives you an idea of just how long Earth took to develop. And all along, alien species from extraterrestrial origin could have found us. They could have winged their way here to see what's here. If they got here during the Silurian, they might have said, "Ooh, wow, what are those things swimming around under that liquid? Oh, that liquid is water. It's salt water. Oh, that's pretty interesting." And they test the salt water, and they find out that it's got sodium in it and chlorine, the chlorine. So it's sodium chloride, NaCl. And they say, "Wow, how did that happen?" And of course, they learned that the chlorine atoms and the sodium atoms each have an electron to give, and one needs an electron. So they're very, very commonly washed off of rocks and stuff into the water. And when they get into water, they combine. And it's a very weak bond. It can be dissolved. But you know what? It's kind of cool, because now that tells us why water is salty. And, of course, why you are salty. More on that when we get back in just a minute here on SkyTour Radio. I'm Mark D'Antonio with Daryl Mason and Amanda Curran. Keep listening.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The new KGRA YouTube channel is now live. Subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to stay up to date on the latest major announcements, alerts on trading topics, exclusive live streams, live video cast, and that's just the beginning. Be the first to know what's coming from the KGRA TV channel in real time. So keep it locked in to your contact for alternative talk radio on the internet. Your KGRAradio.com. Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to the last half hour of Sky Tour Radio. I hope you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, and boy, is it memory lane. I mean, we're going through Earth's history. And you might say, do I really have all this in my head? I have no life. Okay, so a lot of it's in my head. But then again, when you live with this stuff day in, day out, you don't forget. I did write a little bit of stuff to keep me in the right order. But for the most part, once you've done this toilet paper routine many times, you kind of remember it. I actually would, when I do this actually out in public, when I do it at a conference or whatever, I put these vital points in time, like these we're naming here. I give them to specific people in the audience, and they stand up and they hold the toilet paper. And this is how it works. And they unroll and keep going to the next one. I hand it to a person. I ask them their name. And then we end up having a nice conversation for a little bit with everybody's involved. And I did this for 800 people at the Ozark conference a couple of years back. And everybody in the audience, I circled the whole audience with this toilet paper. Well, actually, the center section, there wasn't enough to go all the way. It was only 100 feet long. So when I did this and circled the center of the audience, it almost circled the center section completely, but not quite. It only went 3/4 of the way around. But I had people at all these events, locations, and because I tied them to specific events in the history of the planet, I remembered all their names. And that reminds me of a magician and a memory guy named Harry Lorraine. He would, I've been a magician since I was in 7th grade. So, I was always fascinated with what people do to fool other people, which is why I guess I'm okay at trying to figure out hoaxes, right? And when Harry Lorraine would go to a show, his final routine was based on something he did right at the very beginning. As people would come in, he would greet them and ask them their name. And they just kept walking in, one after the other, shake his hand. Not now, anyway. Not with COVID. He did. But he would then, as a final act, as a final routine, at the end of the night, he would get up there and he'd pick a row, and he'd name everybody in that row. All right? And the people, of course, start laughing. Then he'd say, someone in the audience raise your hand, another one raise your hand, and he'd pick the first person that rose their hand and then said, okay, all of you in that row, Bob, Frank, Bill, another Frank, Bob, and he would go down the entire row and name the people, and he was never wrong. Now, if you think about it, that capability is something that we evolved as human beings. The ability to remember everything. And we have lost that with the way our educational system has gone on, and the way our education works. But I'm going to tell you a little quick story, just a little side here from all the heavy stuff about Earth's development here. When I was in the hospital, I was actually in a coma for 5 days, and I was wide awake. So I was sort of locked in. I wasn't afraid. I knew it'd be okay. But during that time, I had perfect recall. Now, I'm still the same person I was back then, but during that time when my head was disconnected from the rest of my body, I had perfect recall of every single event in my life. I could go anywhere I wanted and relive it and think of it and say, oh, I remember that. Yes, but, and then I remember this. I remember the smells. I remember the color of that. I remember this. I remember that feeling. I remember the event itself in intricate detail. All of it. So see, locked in our evolved brains is this capability. So what Harry Lorraine did, and that he got paid handsomely to do, is something we can all do. We can look back and we can somehow, and we just haven't figured out how to crack that part of our brain yet. We can look inside and figure this stuff out, because I did it. I was there. And I remember when they were pulling me out of the coma, I remember they said, okay, we're going to take him out of the coma now, because it was a medically induced coma. Okay. And as they were pulling me out, I remember feeling like I was losing contact with the rest of all my life events. And I wanted those back. And I kept screaming in my head, put me back, put me back. I want to go back to that. I want to be able to, I want to see these other things. I haven't even stopped, please. I haven't seen the rest of my life. I want to see all these other things. Because it was perfect recall. I mean, it was literally like having a computer that had every event in your life on it, and you got access to that program. Whoa, look at that. That's what happened. So the evolution of beings on this planet, especially Homo sapiens sapiens us, this is a capability we all have. Harry Lorraine used it to make money and to entertain people very well. But it's something we can all do as long as we can kind of figure out a way to get it back, to hook into it. No, I don't say go into comas, but because the other problem with that coma was none of the rest of my body worked at all. I was totally paralyzed and I was blind. So I had nothing else for my brain to do but to think about my past and where I was, what I did. And when I was with just myself, the brain worked miraculously well. God, it was just so impressive, so incredible. See, so somewhere during our evolution, we kind of lost this ability to, on a daily basis, access that which is that part of our brain. I'm not saying, and you hear things, well, we only use 10% of our brain. That's actually not true. We use almost all of our brain. The trouble is, we don't use it at any one time. It depends on the task. And to spoil something else for everybody, the concept of left and right brain, yeah, I'm afraid that doesn't exist. Okay, it's a sort of a mythos that developed over time. What it really means is when you're doing certain tasks, there's certain parts of your brain that light up. Okay, but to be creative doesn't mean you're only engaging the left part of your brain. And to be analytical doesn't mean you're only engaging the right part of your brain. Every analytical task, every creative task requires you to use different parts of all of your brain to carry out the tasks. And some people do it better than others. Some artists are phenomenal at age 5. And some analysts are geniuses at age 7. So, this kind of thing, see, it's part of our evolution. It's in all of us. We just have to figure out how to crack it and how to answer it. Now,
may I jump in there?
Yes.
I think being civilized, quote unquote, has something to do with that. I saw something many years ago, some documentary about people in Africa, that if they were not civilized, so to speak, checkers was a popular pastime with them. And two guys would sit down and they would play a game of checkers in about 30 seconds flat.
Wow.
And as soon as they became civilized, if they moved to a town, they lost the ability to play checkers in 30 seconds.
Really? I wonder what that's from.
Well, I just wonder if that doesn't, tie into what you're talking about.
You know what? It's possible. There's so many, I can tell you, there's so many research projects that need to be done. Okay. So many. And I'll tell you, if you want to talk to us, the number is 855-472-5483. That's 85-KGRA live. For those of you that want to figure out what number corresponds to what letter, 85-KGRA live or 855-472-5483. And we're going to take a call. And here we go. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's happening?
Hi, Mark, and hello to Amanda. Welcome back this week, and hello to Daryl.
How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Finally was able to get out today. It was, I walked around town, and it was what I like to call a no-glove day. So that was pretty impressive. No-glove day. So no shovel day and no glove day. We had 2 inches of snow last night, and then it was melted by lunchtime. So, but anyway, the question I had for you, Mark, is when you did the timeline, did you have any wrinkles in time? Like, oh, well, wait, should I put that here or should I put that over here? Or did you have any confusion as to the timeline as far as the accounts of what you were trying to express? And have you changed it at all since you originally did that? And I'm going to also add that I was fortunate enough to watch you do that presentation at Bill's. So.
Oh yeah, the toilet paper. Well, you know, this is an evolving process. As we learn more, I have made changes. I've made changes actually up to today on this, and you've heard some of them, but don't know it because you haven't seen it. Now, I will say this: Bill is our esteemed producer, but you know, Bill almost destroyed humanity. I just want you to know that. And he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Okay.
I thought it was Bill and Eric that was manning the.
Yeah, I had Bill on one end, and I had Eric Hartwig from Massachusetts Director from Mutual UFO Network at the other, and they were rolling the toilet paper as I was explaining the different areas on the toilet paper because we were doing this in an area where if it dropped, it could have gotten wet. So we got to about 1 billion years, and Bill dropped 1 billion years on the ground. And he's laughing right now. I know he is because it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Because you know, I felt the entire Earth shake. It's like, whoa, we lost almost 1 billion years. But no, so it's kind of funny. I've changed quite a lot since then on the presentation because see, as the science becomes more refined and we learn new things about species and things like that, it's important to make changes to this. Now, keep in mind, we've only just gotten up to, you know, the first insects now out of Devonian. We're at 400 million years ago, like 25 sheets ago. 25 sheets to go, I should say, from the front, from today. So, you know, there's still a long way to go. But if we don't get through all of it, we'll do more next week, maybe.
Yeah, what I really enjoy about your presentation of how you show it is that you keep the person engaged, meaning even the audience, you keep them interested in what you're trying to share, even on the radio, which, you know, when you're talking science, it's not always easy to keep people interested, you know.
So, it's true. So and tonight I know we're talking about a lot of heavy things, but there's interesting caveats that occur at any time. And I have to say, you know, that this planet never ceases to amaze me with the things we learn. You know, like when the first insects came around, there happened to be a fairly high oxygen level on the planet. So we had dragonflies that were literally 2 to 3 feet long.
Wow.
Now, the biggest dragonflies now are about 3 inches, maybe 3.5, 4 at the most, in length. Imagine a 3-foot dragonfly. I mean, they could carry away your small dog.
Oh, yeah.
So,
all right, well, I'll let someone else call in. And,
all right, no worries. But I appreciate your call, Ronald.
Yeah, thank you for a live show, and thank you again for Amanda and Daryl being back. And you guys have to sing happy birthday to Bill.
Well, I was going to take some opportunity during the show because of social distancing. Bill might be having a birthday by himself, so hopefully the community will reach out April 1st. And that is not an April Fool's joke.
Right. But, you know, just since this is the last show before his actual birthday, which is Wednesday. I would say go ahead and sing it. I know you guys can sing. I heard you guys sing. So you guys go ahead and sing a little tune for him, and I know he'd like that.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bill. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, that was great. We don't have the applauding sound, so we got to do it ourselves.
There you go.
All right. There you go. All right. Thank you.
Practice that, we'd have better harmonies. What can I say?
That's right. Have a great night, and thank you again for the live show. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks for the call. We'll see you later.
Well.
Yeah.
Oops. I cut him off. Hey, I think that's pretty cool. So, Bill, you better be smiling because we just sang happy birthday to you. All right.
Well,
so,
Daryl did.
Well, I did too. That was me there too singing.
A little. I heard
Yeah.
a little. Okay.
Well, yeah. We harmonized together, Unless somebody cut my mic off at the time, which I don't think they did. Probably should have. So, I want to take us back here because I want to get to. There's a point that I know Daryl has another comment he'd like to add to some of this. Which
You think you can make it in 15 minutes?
Oh, I'm almost there as far as this goes. I'll get there because I'll go fairly quickly now. When we're talking about the end of the Devonian here, and the beginning of the Devonian period. That's where we saw those big insects. We also saw, and this again is 400 million years ago. That's 25 sheets from the front. Okay, 25 sheets to go. We also saw the first amphibians. Okay, so no reptiles yet, but amphibians. Now, amphibians and reptiles used to be classified as reptiles together. Amphibians used to be called reptiles. But there were enough differences, and it's not that easy in some species to detect the differences, and we're not going to go through them. But I think that the interesting thing about this is that the amphibians came first. And they needed water to survive. Stands to reason. We had lots of water, lots of oceans, lots of tidal pools. So amphibians would probably arise first. Reptiles, on the other hand, would arise after the colonization of land was in earnest. So around 360 million years ago, which was 23 sheets to go from the 23 sheets from the front, we found that was the beginning of what was called the Carboniferous period. Now that ends at Devonian, and Devonian at the end of the Devonian, the Devonian period lasted 48 million years, and there's a few interesting things about the Devonian that we didn't mention, and I will now. The notable things in the Devonian period is that this is where the famous ammonite comes from, Ammonite. The first ammonites were found there. Ammonites are characterized by a beautiful spirally shell where they look like a chambered shell, and sometimes they get filled with these very colorful mineral deposits. I have several ammonites here, and they are just beautiful pieces. And it's amazing to think that they were once living animals, And at this time, too, many armored fishes developed as well. I don't mean armor as in machine guns, but, armored fishes as in having an exoskeleton as well as bones, which were part of the skeleton, essentially, that consisted of armor plating. So that was a development, which was an accidental development that turned out to be a success. And then later on in the Devonian, as we started to approach the end of the Devonian, in fact, this was around 340. Just about 360 million years ago. We started to see sharks for the first time, sharks and rays. And of course, lots and lots more of coral reefs are being developed. And here's one that most people don't know. The first insects that developed at that time that I was telling you about, believe it or not, these were actually one of the offshoot paths that came off of crustaceans. How about that? Did you ever think that insects were related to lobster? But they are, kind of distantly, and with a wink and a nod, they actually were. The Devonian period lasted 48 million years. And then there was an extinction event that killed off 50% of all the life on the planet. And keep in mind that these extinction events are not instant. This particular one was an extinction event that occurred over 25 to 50 million years in length. So you see, extinction events aren't just boom. Oh, where'd he go? Frank? Where'd Frank go? I mean, it's not that fast. Okay. So it could have been due to changes in biodiversity that cascaded through the species over time, or some other element. Don't think the Devonian extinction was an impact related one. But if you think about it, the Devonian period led to another period which was actually very important, and that was the beginning of the Carboniferous, and that was in 360 million years ago, or roughly 23 sheets, as I said. This is the beginning of these giant forests, all right? And this is where reptiles showed up too, by the way. Once we had giant forests, reptiles showed up. And 320 million years ago, about 730 sheets, 20 sheets to go, we had the first early trees and coal deposits. If you remember, coal is formed from trees that have been felled in a swamp and then eventually get buried over time and get under high pressure, and the trees become coal. That's the transformation that occurs with tree organic debris. Turns into trees, okay, or turns into coal. Now, right around 280 million years ago, which is 18 sheets from today, that was when the Pangaea finally formed. Okay, this is where Pangaea formed. Okay, the final assembly of Pangaea occurred 18 sheets ago, which is 280 million years, and thus begins the Triassic period. Now, one of the things that begins, that actually occurs just before this, is during this time we have been in the Permian period. The Permian period is around 250 million years to around 245 million years. So it was actually a point in time when there was the most oxygen that the planet ever had. Okay, and but at the end of the Permian period, we actually had a major extinction event, the worst one we've ever had, and we lost 98% roughly of the species on the planet. And when that happened, it saw a tremendous downturn. It took millions of years for this a few million years for it to manifest overall. But then we found that the Siberian traps, the volcanic area of Siberia, what is now Siberia, is probably responsible for having spewed so much material into the sky, including carbon dioxide, that it was going to be a real big problem. And that caused the oceans to die, the oxygen to die, creatures died. It was a cascade once again. So then after the Permian period, the Triassic began. That's where we saw the first dinosaurs. And then the Jurassic period began 208 million years ago, 13 sheets from the front. Now we saw there things like the opening of the Atlantic Ocean, 12 sheets from the front. Early birds and animals, 11 sheets from the front, 180 million years ago. Early flowering plants, very important for insects because that started the pollination process. That was an interesting mutation. And then the Cretaceous period, it starts around 140. Cretaceous period starts at 140 million years ago, and that's 9 sheets from the front. Things like the Rocky Mountains, that starts. The Rocky Mountains begin to form at that point. New things like that, really cool. And then we have what's called the Tertiary. Don't worry about this. Paleogene period. It's kind of like recent life, and that was 65 million years ago. And something else happened back then, which was what we call a boundary event. Again, that's when dinosaurs became extinct, and it happened because of the impact off the Yucatan. And there's some interesting developments that happened there, and I want to have Daryl take us through something he told me about earlier. We've talked about this actually in the show. Daryl, why don't you spend a few seconds here and a few minutes and tell people about that? He's there. I know he is. He's on mute. He doesn't realize it. Oh.
Sorry, I mashed a button on my dongle. Here I am. Right after the Chicxulub impact on the Yucatan killed off the dinosaurs, I have talked about this before. There's a place here just immediately east of town where I live, Colorado Springs, called Corral Bluffs. And they made a paleontological find out there. The Cretaceous Paleocene boundary, they used to call it the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary, the KT boundary, is visible several places here in the state. And that is when the impact happened in the Yucatan and the stuff that fell out of the sky. Well, they discovered in this Corral Bluffs area just east of town the advent of local mammals. And this is evolution in action, since evolution is the point of the whole toilet paper roll story, I guess. That immediately after the KT event happened, they discovered fossils of small mammals. And these critters were like about 1 pound in size. And in the blink of an eye in geological time, less than 1 sheet of toilet paper, 700,000 years, these little 1 pound mammals became as big as hogs. And they evolved, they grew that much in just 700,000 years. If you do a search for Corral Bluffs dig or Corral Bluffs paleontology or something of the sort, I'm sure you'll find lots about it.
That's a great natural resource. Unfortunately, it's closed now. You said, right?
Yeah, it was due to become a city park right outside town, and they have closed it to the public because of the fines out there. And the paleontologists are just digging like crazy up there.
Well, you see, the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary event is something that changed life on Earth. And remember, all throughout this long history, and by the way, that Cretaceous Paleogene boundary, the end of the dinosaurs, that's actually, just 4 sheets from the front. Okay? 4 sheets. So there's 298, and that 4 sheets corresponds to 16.8 inches. So just 16.8 inches from today on this scale is when dinosaurs died. Dinosaurs that most people think are ancient history, they're actually recent history. And this is probably the most powerful part of this talk, is when people realize that dinosaurs happened yesterday and not way, way back at the beginning. They happened yesterday. So had dinosaurs not gone extinct, there's a likelihood, possible likelihood, not guaranteed whatsoever, that there might have been some intelligent dinosaurs that developed over time. Or there might have been a co-development, a co-evolution of Australopithecines, which are like Lucy, or some additional creatures that may have very well, graced our planet that might have been intelligent, but we would certainly be different than we are now. We wouldn't have evolved the same way. Everything happens because of other things that have happened. So, and it's always on the backs of other things that have happened. So how we look is exactly how we look because of the fact that evolution and 5 major extinction events, whether they were impact related or biodiversity related, happened. Hey, this is life on the big planet. And we aren't the most, this particular planet is not the most livable planet. It's not super habitable. It's just habitable. The creatures here can be killed by the sun's rays because of cancer. They can be injured by many things, by natural processes, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes. So it's not super habitable. And that's a phrase, super habitable. But you know what? It's habitable enough. And we have a great radio show, Sky Tour Radio, that we have on Sunday nights from 8 to 10, as you've already endured. And let us know what you feel. Let us know what you think. SkyTour Radio at kgraradio.com. On behalf of Daryl and Amanda, I wish you all a wonderful night. We took an extra minute tonight to just finish out, and I asked for that extra minute. In any case, remember, if you go outside, folks, you keep looking up.
While you're strolling along.
That's right.
Socially distancing.
There you go. Good night, everybody.